Good afternoon, Indiana manufacturers. Today, we're breaking down how new investments in plastics, talk of modernizing Northwest Indiana steel, and a growing microelectronics talent pipeline out of Bloomington could change your operation and your workforce in the years to come. If you run an operation in Vanderburgh County, around Evansville, up in Lake County near the steel mills, or down in Monroe County around Bloomington, these are not theoretical headlines. They shape who you can hire, what you pay for materials, and how competitive you stay. My goal this morning is simple: give you a clear picture of what changed, what it could do to your cost structure and staffing, and a few questions you can carry straight into your morning or afternoon huddle. Let's start with this. $12 million. That is the size of Polyram's investment to expand plastics manufacturing in Evansville. For you, that number represents more than a project headline. It signals demand growth in specialized plastics, more production capacity in southern Indiana, and more competition for people who know how to keep that kind of operation running. If you buy plastics, ship into plastics, or compete for the same maintenance and technical talent anywhere in that corridor, that $12 million is a real signal you should not ignore. If you're running a plastics or packaging operation anywhere in southern Indiana, this Evansville expansion should be on your radar. Polyram, a plastics manufacturer, is putting $12 million into expanding its operation in Vanderburgh County. They're adding new jobs and increasing production capacity for specialized plastic compounds. That means more local output, more trucks moving product, and more hiring in and around Evansville. So why does this matter for you? First, it confirms there's a strong demand in specialized plastics. If you're using those materials, you may see more localized supply options inside the state instead of depending as heavily on out-of-state shipments. Second, it will increase competition for skilled labor in southern Indiana. Maintenance techs, process techs, controls people, and good operators already have choices. This expansion gives them one more. So the question is this: are you ready for that? Over the next 12 to 18 months, that extra hiring can drive wage pressure and make it harder to fill open roles if you're treating labor like a commodity. It can also open the doors to tighter supplier relationships if you position yourself as a preferred customer to the right plastics partner. So what should you watch? Keep an eye on how fast those new jobs are added and what kinds of plastics they're emphasizing. If you start hearing about specific resin families or compounds coming out of Evansville that line up with your products, that may be a chance to shorten your supply chain. If they're going after similar talent profiles that you recruit, this is your early warning to tighten up your retention and hiring plan. Here's a question for your team today. Are we actively exploring opportunities to integrate with or supply growing specialized manufacturing operations like Polyram's within the state? The second thing you need to know today is what is being discussed up in Lake County. A new report is making the case that modernizing Northwest Indiana's steel mills, particularly moving toward what people are calling green steel, could bring substantial economic and community benefits to that region. That is not just an environmental story. It's a story about capital, energy, and long-term competitiveness for one of Indiana's anchor industries. For you, here's why this matters. If these mills modernize, the way they use energy changes, and that can feed back into how utilities plan generation, transmission, and distribution in that territory. Over time, that can influence the energy costs tied to making steel, which rolls straight into the pricing you see on coils, bars, and fabricated components. It also shapes the regulatory landscape. Expectations around sustainably produced materials do not stay at the mill gate. They flow down to purchasing specs at manufacturers across the state. So, if you rely on steel-based inputs, or if your customers are starting to ask about the origin and footprint of your raw materials, this conversation about green steel is part of your world, whether you want it to be or not. So what should you watch? Pay attention to legislative proposals and any public-private partnerships announcements that mention funding or incentives for steel mill modernization or green technology adoption. Those are early indicators that this is moving from a report to a real plan. Also, listen for language about requirements or preferences for using low emission or green steel in certain projects or sectors. That can create a two-tier market on price and availability. Here's a question for your team. How might a shift toward green steel production in Indiana impact our raw material sourcing strategies and our own sustainability targets? Now, if you're looking at automation, robotics, or advanced controls inside your operation, what's happening in Bloomington should matter to you. Indiana University is building programs to address critical microelectronics needs and training students for what's becoming a rapidly growing industry. This is not just about research labs, it's about building real skills in microelectronics that sit underneath the sensors, controllers, and chips you depend on to automate and monitor your lines. So why does that matter? Every manufacturer I talk to is dealing with some version of the same problem. You want to add automation, but you're worried about who will maintain it, troubleshoot it, and improve it over time. This initiative at IU helps build a pipeline of skilled talent in microelectronics that can eventually feed into advanced manufacturing, automation engineering, and controls roles across the state of Indiana. Over the next 3 to 5 years, this can be one of the levers that erases future workforce shortages for high-tech roles. But that only helps if you are intentional about connecting with these programs before your competitors do. So what should you watch? Watch for specific curriculum details and internship or co-op opportunities tied to automation, robotics, and advanced controls. Look for chances to bring students into your facility on internships, projects, or capstone work so they see your operation early and start to associate their microelectronics skills with real manufacturing problems. So here's the question for your team. What specific microelectronics skills will be critical for our operation in the next 3 to 5 years? And how can we engage with programs like IU's to secure that talent? So if we zoom out on today's brief, here is what you're looking at as an Indiana manufacturer. You have a $12 million plastic expansion in Evansville that confirms demand and tightens the labor market in southern Indiana. You have serious conversations about modernizing Northwest Indiana steel mills, which could shift how raw materials are produced, priced, and evaluated across the state. And you have Indiana University investing in microelectronics programs that can either become your future talent pipeline or somebody else's. Taken together, that is a picture of higher value manufacturing growth, raw material and energy conversations evolving, and the technical skill bar rising. Now, obviously, I don't run your plant. You do. My real job as CEO of Tactical Energy Group is to stay on top of everything that changes the cost and reliability of your power and the economics of making things in Indiana, so we can build the right products and programs for the manufacturing community. But while I'm doing that work anyway, this brief is my way of giving you as much of that insight as I possibly can so you can spend more time running your operations and less time trying to decode bills, rate cases, and headlines. So let me give you a few questions you can take straight into your morning huddle today or tomorrow, because we're starting a bit late. If you cannot answer these, it is a signal that you're flying blind on some of the shifts that we just walked through. So here are the questions for your morning huddle. First, given the new investments in specialized manufacturing and the push for green steel, what new supply chain opportunities or specific exposure points might emerge for our business in the next 12 to 18 months? That's a big one. Second, how can we proactively engage with educational institutions like IU to make sure we have access to the specialized microelectronics talent that our future automation and controls projects will demand? Third, considering the evolving landscape of raw material production and advanced manufacturing, where are our current operations most exposed to shifts in policy, technology, or workforce availability? Now, if this helped you see today's headlines a little bit more clearly through the lens of your own operation, send it to another Indiana manufacturer who should be thinking about this now instead of reacting to it later. I'm Daniel Burke. This is TEG Daily, and I'll see you tomorrow.